All right, looks like it'll be the third time as the charm once again. Seems like somebody doesn't want me to post these videos. I actually find it funny. All right, guys, and of course this is Born on 11/9/70, and I appreciate you finally getting to watch this video. And let's talk about some news. Now, the other day I made a video about the military training that was going on in Miami, Florida, where they had Black Hawk helicopters and blocking off roads, and they were doing military-style training. And this was unannounced, by the way. The public didn't know about it. It just happened. And I was talking about how it's semi-close to Louisiana. Now, I know it's not 20 feet away, but it's in the general vicinity if you look at geographically speaking in the United States. So most people said, it's just one of those things. Isolated event, no big deal. Well, I saw a video today from JSnip4, and if you don't know who he is, I recommend subscribing to him. I am. He reported, and I Googled it just to verify, that there was another one of these military-style training exercises in Houston, Texas. Now, this was unannounced. Again, they had all the Black Hawk helicopters. They actually had shooting going on. Now, this was happening in a public area where people, the regular people, were thinking they were under attack, and they were saying it seemed like a military zone, where they didn't know if the bullets that were being shot were real or it was just, you know, training exercise, because they weren't told about this. Now, if you know anything about the game of Stratego or Risk or other games like that, like chess, it's all about setting up your pieces. Now, I've talked about, and many people have talked about, a possible false flag event that could be happening around the Super Bowl, and especially around that sinkhole, which is filled with toxic waste, methane gas, oil, and other toxic chemicals that, if ignited, because it's near that Madrid fault line, could cause severe damage. We're talking, they had reports saying it would be like 100 megaton bombs. That's pretty significant, especially on a fault line. Now, if you notice, we have Louisiana here. Now, of course, it's going to be different from here because, you're seeing it from the opposite. So, I'm not getting it wrong. We have Florida on this side, which is my right, and you have Texas here. And Louisiana's right in the middle. Coincidence? Absolutely possible. But that leads people to be a little suspicious because why all of a sudden are these unexpected military trainings where they're going all out, Black Hawk helicopters, open firing, and not the public not being aware of this? They find out by basically getting woken up in the middle of the night or in the middle of the day whenever they did these training exercises and hearing massive amounts of gunfight. A little odd if you think. Now, here's another part you can add to this little story. I don't know if I've made a video about this, but I've definitely talked about it, at least on my Facebook, where they have right now, as we speak, and you, again, can Google this, they have Russian soldiers here in the United States being trained by our military in war game-like scenarios. Now, why would we be doing that? That's a little strange. But let me put it to you in this perspective. If you were to have the choice between Chinese soldiers, African soldiers, or Russian soldiers, which ones could you put in a United States military uniform and would look like the average American? That would be the Russians, because they pretty much look like the average typical American. So, with that being said, now of course some people say it's paranoia, some people say I'm reaching, and that's definitely a possibility. But when something is not impossible, that means it has a probability. So the reason behind the possibility of having the Soviets being trained by our military in warlike scenarios where they're capturing and holding cities here in the United States is, if you see all these videos these days of people interviewing either police, like the local sheriffs, like you've seen on the news reporting that they won't follow any federal orders about gun control. You see all these military saying that they won't go against their oath of office. In other words, when you're in the military, you do not have to obey an illegal order because you're technically going against your oath. So there are a lot of people that are coming out from the military, from the police, etc., where they're saying that they will not go against their oath of office and actually not obey an illegal order. So if there ever came a time where the government tried to turn on its people, a lot of the United States military and police forces would basically throw down their guns and say, you know what, we're not going to be a part of it. So obviously they need a backup plan. Well, if you can get a bunch of trained already, which we're doing as we speak, Russian soldiers to put on American uniforms, well, people will think they're Americans. That could easily solve that problem, wouldn't it? So who's to say in these training exercises that there aren't some, if not all, of the people that you see in these videos and you see on the news and the people saw running in the streets, who's to say some of them are not some of those Russian soldiers? Now, I'm not suggesting that is what it is. I'm suggesting that could be a possibility. We wouldn't know. I mean, for example, if you have somebody that has a Middle Eastern appearance, let's say they happen to live in the United States, but it was a person that looked exactly like somebody, let's say, in Libya. How easy would it be to get that person to be part of some kind of overthrow or some riot or some kind of revolution by sending people that look like the people of the country and just throwing them into a mob? And if you think that's crazy, if you ever saw the We Are Change videos on YouTube, where they were filming from the Occupy Wall Street, there were undercover cops dressed as regular people going into the crowds and trying to cause anarchy and chaos. And they've actually filmed one of the people that they saw was a cop dressed as a civilian trying to cause instigation of fights so the cops can basically start beating and arresting the people. So if you don't think they do that, well, you're not really paying attention. So again, I'm not here trying to say I'm right. I'm not here saying this is what's happening. I'm saying if there's a possibility, it should be spoken about. Because there are more and more people starting to talk about this possible Black Flag event happening at or near the Super Bowl on February 3rd. Now, does that mean it's going to happen? Absolutely not. But let's put it this way. If enough people talk about it, and the people that were, if this was a possibility, going to do something, it would pretty much expose it and awaken a lot of people. Because if everybody said on February 3rd, all of a sudden, that sinkhole that's filled with all the toxic waste and chemicals and methane gas, all of a sudden just happened to explode that day by terrorists, well, if we all talked about it, that would awaken a lot of people, because that's one hell of a coincidence, especially if it happens on the exact same day. So if you're somebody that was going to rob a bank, and all of a sudden a bunch of people decided that they didn't want to allow that to happen because they heard rumors of somebody talking about doing it, and they called the police and said, well, I heard that at 12 o'clock on Friday the 14th at First National Bank, they're going to rob it. Well, if the cops show up there, guess what? They foiled the plan. So that's why we all need to stand up and start talking about these things. It doesn't guarantee we're right, but you know what? If something is going to happen, at least we're helping to expose it. So to me, what this looks like is, because if you know your enemy, they're setting up all the pieces. And they're also getting people to kind of be installed with fear. Because if you read some of the articles about the people in Houston, where they just woke up and all of a sudden heard gunfire, there were people thinking they were in a military zone. They were scared. Well, maybe that's them flexing their muscles, trying to say, hey, look what we can do. Am I right? I don't know. I guess we'll find out, but it doesn't mean I shouldn't be afraid to talk about it. The day we all decide that we shouldn't talk about things because they may seem out of the ordinary or far-fetched is the day we should all just submit and be good little slaves and then just do whatever we're told. I don't want to be one of those people, and I hope you don't either. All right, guys? Seems third time is the charm. Thanks for watching. Peace.